Today, it is difficult to find a country about which there are more myths, rumors, and untrue claims than about North Korea. This is a mysterious state and we don't really know a lot about it. However, today we have collected facts, stories, and videos that will 100% amaze you. But before we start, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to not miss our next episodes. Teenagers working tirelessly to clean up Kim Jong-un's elite ski run. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea has its own special calendar. It's called the Juche calendar. It begins with 1912 because that was the year when the great leader Kim Il-sung was born. At the same time, such a novelty was introduced only in 1997. Only one art studio in North Korea is allowed to portray the country's leaders. It is called Mansudae and is located in Pyongyang. To enter or leave Pyongyang, one must have a special permit. It is also prohibited for ordinary citizens to move outside the region of their residence. If you want to get into the DPRK and you do not have a Malaysian or Singaporean passport, you will have to apply for a visa. Even if it is approved, you can't be sure that you will get into the country. The worst thing is that you may not come back from it later. Fleeing the country is considered the biggest crime. After all, a true patriot will not leave their homeland on a difficult day, even though it is unclear when these most difficult days will end. At the same time, many people will never decide to escape it anyway because their relatives will have to pay a huge price for it. North Korea became one of the first countries to close its borders due to COVID-19. Already in January 2020, the government imposed significant restrictions on foreign travel for North Koreans, and at the end of the same month, completely closed the country to foreign tourists. Everyone knows about, to put it mildly, the difficult relations between North Korea and the USA. In 2014, North Korea posted a video in which soldiers at a shooting range with pistols and machine guns shoot targets with American soldiers painted on them. Moreover, there is another extremely strange video in which a little girl demonstrates her hatred of Americans. If you think that there are no homeless people or those who are beyond the poverty line in North Korea, this is not the case. Just look at this family that has to hide in the daytime. According to the mother, they can only go outside at night in search of food. Probably if the police pay attention to them, they will be arrested and sent to correctional camps. Mobile communication in the DPRK is limited and controlled by the state. Phones can be used only by a small circle of privileged citizens, usually working at the highest level of the party or military apparatus. The ownership and use of mobile phones by individuals are often prohibited or severely restricted. However, some North Koreans, especially in cities on the border with China, use Chinese cellular networks to communicate with the world. Women's pads are banned in the country due to ideological and cultural considerations, as well as limited availability of goods and services. The authorities are promoting the use of alternative hygiene products, such as fabric or reusable pads, instead of imported disposable products. In North Korea, from the age of 4, children can go to kindergarten at the request of their parents. However, starting from the age of 5, visiting the educational institution is mandatory. One needs to go to kindergarten for at least a year if the child is planning to go to school later. First graders should learn the most important things. These are the biographies of the country's leaders, Kim Il-sung, Kim Jong-il, and Kim Jong-un. In everyday life, children are taught to smile at the camera. By doing so, they can make sure that tourists and journalists know that in North Korea, all children are happy, and there can be no other way. The subway in Pyongyang is located deep underground. As in many cities of the former USSR, such a location is chosen due to the fact that the stations also serve as bomb shelters. Usually, when talking about airports, people imagine huge terminals filled with fussy people who are running in the hope of catching their flight, or those who have already spent many hours waiting for connections. However, it is unlikely that anyone has seen Sunan International Airport in Pyongyang. Given that North Korean citizens can fly only in exceptional cases and foreigners are rarely given permission to visit the country, the airport is empty and receives planes only a few times a week. In the DPRK, there is a system of the so-called Songbun social heritage, which divides the population into castes depending on political and ideological affiliation, as well as their connection with the ruling party. There are 5 main types in total: special, core, basic, problematic, and hostile. The upper castes include the highest ranks of the government, the army, and the party, while the lower castes consist of those who are considered unreliable or do not meet ideological standards. This system determines access to privileges, resources, and opportunities in the country. The population of the DPRK does not have enough food. In 2019, the government reduced the daily portion of food to 300 grams per person per day. Currently, North Korea ranks 4th in the world in terms of the number of active military personnel. It has more than 1 million people, or about 5% of the country's population. If you count the total number of military personnel, then this number increases to almost 10 million people, including active personnel, paramilitary formations, and reserves. Moreover, until 2015, service was mandatory only for men, and women could volunteer to serve. After the amendments, the service became mandatory for women under the age of 23. So, what is everyday life like in North Korea? Of course, we don't really know about this, but there are photos and videos taken by various international media and rare tourists. This is what a provincial town east of Kaesong looks like, located along the demilitarized zone. The training of North Korean special forces looks quite unusual. The country's leader believes that special forces soldiers need to conduct intensive exercises, paying attention to marches, fire training, and overcoming water and other natural obstacles in conditions as close to combat as possible. It is important to recall that the DPRK is the most militarized country in the world. Its armed forces consist of over 1,200,000 people.
What an incredible footage! We always strive to choose the best content for you.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un chose his armored train to travel to Russia on an official visit. One of the carriages where the journalists were allowed in had white walls, ivory curtains, and pink leather sofas. This vehicle can travel at a speed of about 60 kilometers per hour due to heavy armor. The wagons, which may contain the North Korean leader, are bulletproof and equipped with tinted windows. In the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, there is a special caste system invented by Kim Il-sung. It is called Songbun and divides all residents of the country into 3 large categories: enemies, hesitant, and loyal. Almost everything depends on which caste a person belongs to. It defines a place where they can live, what goods to buy, whether they have the right to get an education, a good job, and join the party. Even access to quality food depends on a person's caste. The female traffic controllers are dressed very elegantly, and their profession is highly respected. In rural North Korea, buses as we know them do not exist. Bicycles are the main means of transportation in the DPRK. Cars are incredibly expensive for an ordinary resident of the country. Besides, buying them is simply too expensive. In addition, the lack of gasoline makes such a purchase even more expensive. This photo was taken in Wonsan. This is what a North Korean celebration looks like. Pay attention to the tiny size of the dishes. Free trade is illegal in the country. However, after the famine in the 90s of the last century, changmadangs appeared. These are markets regulated by the state. Those who cannot afford a place behind the counter in the local changmadang try to sell their products on the street, but this can easily cause problems with the police. Portraits of President Kim Il-sung and General Kim Jong-il can be seen in every train carriage. Pyongyang subway is full of propaganda. This is a local school bus. For transportation, the children have to stay on top of each other. Soldiers of the Korean People's Army in uniform ride amusement rides at a park in Pyongyang. Folklore Street is a complex in the city of Sarewan, south of Pyongyang. Its goal is to present a romanticized version of ancient Korea. 23-year-old U.S. Army Private Travis King was facing disciplinary action for incidents that occurred during his service in South Korea. Therefore, before returning home, he escaped and joined an excursion to the demilitarized zone, where he crossed the border and ended up in the DPRK. He was soon detained by the police. This exceptional case was resolved fairly quickly when the North Korean authorities decided to deport the American soldier. According to the North Korean media, the DPRK is ahead of the whole planet in science and medicine. The Central Telegraph Agency constantly announces successful trials of drugs that can effectively combat various serious diseases. It was here that a miracle injection was developed that would get rid of the most terrible viruses of our time, including coronavirus, Ebola, and even AIDS.
What a twist! Haven't you expected to see this either, have you?
This is an ordinary street in the port city of Haeju. The sign says Cultural Revolution. This couple was photographed on their wedding day at the Pyongyang Botanical Garden. Apartment buildings all over the country are just cold, dreary, and weathered old concrete buildings. North Korea has frosty, snowy winters, and there is no central heating. This is the North Korean city of Haisan. Soldiers stand guard at the Yalu River. This is the giant Luna Park, the only amusement fair in the country. There are attractions from some other era. One can play archery, ball games, and use ancient swings, but most impressive are the planes equipped with machine guns. The infrastructure looks very worn out and unsafe, but one can still have a good time here. Pyongyang residents plant trees near the Mangyongdae School Children's Palace on the occasion of Tree Planting Day. Workers disinfect the interior of Pyongyang International Airport as part of measures against coronavirus. This is how disinfection takes place in the supermarket. This farmer plants rice. Without the flag, nothing would have grown. This is what autumn in Pyongyang looks like. The guide at the museum is dressed in a military uniform. The exposition, which she talks about with enthusiasm, is dedicated to fighters. Policewomen appeared on the streets of Pyongyang back in the 80s. They not only regulated traffic, but also turned into a real gem of the DPRK. They are even printed on postcards, posters, stamps, and souvenirs. Their work is prestigious, so they enjoy universal attention and respect. By the way, only girls with attractive looks are hired. At the age of 26, they are sent to retirement. North Korea has been experiencing a shortage of fertilizers since 2008. So in 2014, Supreme Leader Kim Jong-un called on farmers to use human feces along with animal waste and organic compost to fertilize fields. After that, it became possible to purchase human excrement in special stores. Residents of the DPRK even claim that such vegetables are much tastier. Doctors and scientists say that it is dangerous for health. For example, recently doctors found a huge number of parasitic worms on the body of one soldier, one of which reached a length of 28 centimeters. People walk past a kiosk where they can buy snacks. Such pavilions are a common thing in Pyongyang. They sell food, drinks, and even artificial flowers. Students read a report in the Rodong Sinmun newspaper about the visit of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to Vietnam. Men smoke while chatting outside of a supermarket in the center of Pyongyang. There is even a casino in the capital where one can play slot machines. A North Korean bride and groom pose for a photo at the Central Zoo in Pyongyang. Recently, you can notice the appearance of the residents of the DPRK on social networks. At first glance, they behave like ordinary people. They relax and show different food. But considering that internet access is strictly regulated, it is possible that this is an element of propaganda. These people walk through Kim Il-sung Square to watch fireworks during the celebration of the anniversary of the late North Korean leader's birthday. Agriculture is practically non-existent in the country, which is why many people eat what they can find, such as seaweed and roots. The Korean peninsula was divided into two parts after the end of the war in 1953. A buffer demilitarized zone can be found between them. The length of the zone was 241 kilometers and the width was 4 kilometers, 2 kilometers each to the south and north. It was at this distance that the armed forces of both countries were withdrawn from the places of clashes. It is fenced with barbed wire and guarded by snipers, ready to shoot at anyone who approaches it. Given the fear of imprisonment or even the death penalty, most North Koreans would never have decided on such an escape attempt. In the video, a mother and her daughter are trying to swim across the river in search of a new life. Unfortunately, their actions were unsuccessful. Law enforcement agencies noticed them and managed to detain them. Soon after, the mother and daughter were convicted. The following were published illegally. They were leaked by those who want to reveal the truth about North Korea to the world. Some videos will just shock you. Someone filmed how people tried to enter the territory of the Japanese embassy. However, their attempt to escape was brutally suppressed by the police. 3 men managed to escape, but the woman and child did not.
And how do you like such a twist? To be honest, I can't do without your comments here.
This video shows an interrogation at a police station in North Korea. At the same time, the scariest thing about it is not even a woman trembling in horror, but a bloodstain on the wall behind her. This is the official TikTok of the DPRK, where you can see propaganda videos about a happy life in the country. However, this social network, like many other things, is inaccessible to ordinary people. These videos are being filmed in order to show the world how happy the people of North Korea are. Most of the people in these videos seem pretty scared. It's like they're being threatened with something very bad. Now, this is what the streets in the center of Pyongyang look like during the day. There are very few cars and people. The traffic controller, when she saw that she was being filmed, began to pretend that she was directing a non-existent flow of traffic. On July 8, 1994, the sad news shocked North Korea. The founder, military, and party leader President Kim Il-sung died. Mourning lasted for 10 days, during which national flags were lowered at half-mast throughout the country and all forms of entertainment were banned. About 2 million people attended the funeral, most of whom did not hide their pain and despair. Interestingly, foreigners were not allowed to attend the funeral. An American businessman of Korean origin, Kim Dong-chul, or prisoner number 429 as he is called in the DPRK, was detained in March 2015 for trying to gain illegal access to North Korean military secrets. A year later, at a press conference, he admitted his guilt and repented, although no evidence of his crime was found. As a result, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Fortunately, in 2018, after a meeting between U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Kim Jong-un, the American was allowed to return home.
If you haven't liked this episode yet, now is the best time to do it.
This is Otto Warmbier, an American student who was imprisoned in North Korea from March 2016 to June 2017. The official version of the charge is that he tried to steal a propaganda poster from the Yanggakdo Hotel, where he lived as a tourist. In general, he was sentenced to 15 years for such a blatant crime. Otto was returned to his homeland after he fell into a coma. But 6 days later, the guy died without regaining consciousness. Barbed wire can be seen along the entire line of contact between the DPRK and South Korea. This is the most militarized border in the world, and only the wind can pass through it without any issues. Tens of thousands of troops are patrolling it, and they are ordered to shoot at anyone who tries to escape. The territories of North Korea are unsuitable for agriculture. Since the country is isolated, it is not surprising that the state cannot provide enough food for the entire population. In the 90s of the last century, famine claimed the lives of about 2 million people. It's just terrible. The Arirang Festival is a mass musical and gymnastic performance held in the DPRK. It is celebrated annually on April 15th and is associated with the celebration of the birthday of Kim Il-sung, the first leader of the DPRK. In 2000, the show entered the Guinness Book of World Records as one of the most ambitious in the world. Epic scenes glorifying the idea of Juche, the struggle of the people and the army for the creation of a powerful and prosperous state, and the unification of Korea are played out in the stadium. Almost 100,000 people participate in the performance. These are laureates of famous international and Korean competitions, students, and school children. As a rule, the staging always follows the same scenario. At the same time, the spectators in the stands take a direct part in the show. They are called the live screen. Each of these people hold colorful sheets of paper in their hands and lifts them up on command to make different drawings.
It was so cool! It's hard to comprehend how this is even possible.
Any manifestations of feelings on the street and in public places in the country are considered unacceptable. Your spouse is a comrade in the struggle for the prosperity of the nation. No other options are available. In North Korea, the state even regulates hairstyles. There is a certain list of allowed options, and there should be no deviations from it. 14 ideologically correct haircuts are provided for men, and 15 of them are offered to women. Usually unmarried girls prefer longer hair, but they can't go below the shoulder blades. Middle-aged women have a wave hairstyle, and the elderly have a short and voluminous one. It is forbidden to dye hair for everyone, regardless of gender and age, but one can hide gray hair. The Rungado May Day Stadium in Pyongyang is one of the largest in the world. It is designed to accommodate 150,000 spectators at a time and impresses with its original shape. 16 arches frame the stadium around its perimeter. Today, it is used for local football matches, sports competitions, and tournaments. At the same time, the main purpose of the sports arena is to hold a mass holiday called Arirang. In 1995, a major show of 8 professional wrestlers took place at Pyongyang's Mayday Stadium. At that time, 340,000 people visited it in 2 days. According to Jushi's ideology, North Korea should be a self-sufficient country. Accordingly, imported products, including clothing, are prohibited. Local jeans are made here because it is very practical, but they should not be blue since this is the color of world imperialism. What is happening in this photo is not known. Most likely, the person lost consciousness during the interrogation, which was accompanied by torture. The internet in North Korea is strictly controlled. An ordinary person can only access 28 sites and only with special permission. Photos of leaders should be in every home and kept perfectly clean. This is monitored by special inspectors who can come to visit at any time and check. There is no access to foreign newspapers or magazines in the country, and the local media write exclusively about the greatness of the country, promote the idea of Jushi, and praise the leader. It is not forbidden to keep receivers, but they are all sealed and registered, and it is possible to listen to only a few state radio channels. The country has established an Inminbon system. This is a form of joint local organization similar to the District Watch. No single North Korean person exists outside of them. A typical Inminbon consists of 20 to 30 families and is determined by residential proximity. For example, it can unite families sharing a common staircase in a large apartment building. Each Inminbon is headed by a headman who regularly meets with the party authorities and informs them of misconduct. The army in North Korea does not act against its people, as you might think. No, the army is the people. In fact, this country is so isolated from the rest of the world, so there's no other option. If you commit a crime here, you will fall under the rule of 3 generations. This means that when a person goes to prison, his whole family goes with him. The next 2 generations are born in prisons and live there all their lives. Just think about it. The DPRK has a 6-day working week, and on weekends, one has to do volunteer work. For example, cleaning the streets. Such a way of employment ensures that the average citizen simply does not have free time, which means they have no time to think about whether the party's policy is correct. Elections are held in the country every 5 years. There is only one candidate on the ballot, and one can vote against him, but they will have to do it in a transparent booth. This means that everyone will find out about it, and the consequences will not take long to wait. Kim Jong-un is trying to show that life in North Korea is getting better under his rule. To do this, he softened the economic laws a little. He allowed the operation of local markets and transferred some state-owned enterprises into private hands. But of course, all this is not enough, and some people in the country continue to starve. There are rumors that the North Korean leader has his own pleasure squad. This is a group of 2,000 of the most beautiful girls in the country. They must satisfy the chief, senior officials, and special guests. According to the members of this organization who fled the country, the girls receive a good salary. In addition, the ruler spends millions of dollars annually on the maintenance of such a squad. Kim Jong-un is married and has a wife. Her name is Lee Sol-ju, and they have 3 children, a son, and 2 daughters. But the country's leader appears in public exclusively with daughter. Her name is Kim Joo-ae. It is not surprising that she was immediately called the future leader of the country. In the local media, she is known by the titles Noble Child, Venerable Offspring, and Beloved Daughter. At the same time, nothing else is known about the child, even her exact age. Since 1993, about 2,000 refugees have been leaving North Korea every year. There are many companies that can help to leave the country for a certain amount of around $8,000. However, it is very difficult to accumulate this money because the earnings of a DPRK citizen per year are 4 times less than the requested remuneration. North Koreans are shorter than their neighbors from the south by an average of 3 to 8 centimeters. Apparently, the difference is caused by nutrition. In addition, it is caused not only by the famine of the 90s of the 20th century. The diet of North Koreans is generally poorer. In recent years, the country has faced a demographic crisis. Couples are in no hurry to have children, seeing that the situation in the country is not changing too much for the better. This has led to the fact that only about a third of the territory is now inhabited in the DPRK. What dishes are the most popular in North Korean cuisine? Injo gogi bap is a sausage made from soybeans. Sunjeokguk is a soup made from gray mullet and black pepper. Miokguk is a Korean seaweed soup. Jokbal means pork legs covered with soy sauce and various spices. Dotorimuk is jelly made from acorns. Hwacheon-gun is a Korean dessert in the form of small, sweet, round pancakes with an edible flour baked in the middle. At concerts in the DPRK, one will not see the usual bands. In fact, musical accompaniment can be provided by military orchestra. This North Korean resident fears that she will end up in a concentration camp because she managed to save her 2 children during the fire, but the portraits of the country's leaders were burned. Shin Dong-hyuk is a human rights activist who is considered to be the only known prisoner who successfully escaped from the internment camp of the Total Control Zone in North Korea. He has given interviews around the world about his life in the camp and about the totalitarian North Korean regime to raise people's awareness of the situation in his home country. There is a huge shortage of electricity in the DPRK. Even in Pyongyang, the capital of the country where the elite live, it can be used only for several hours. The rest of the country is not electrified at all. This is clearly visible in photos from space. The constitution of the country says that people are free in their religious beliefs. However, this is not true, and all those who try to follow their faith face repression. Members of the secret Christian churches were arrested and even executed. The North Korean government tightly controls tourism. All trips are organized and conducted only by government travel companies. People come mainly from China. The entire tour plan is clearly scheduled so that tourists do not have free time and do not explore the country on their own. Otherwise, they can film something that is strictly prohibited to show to others. As you can see, life in North Korea is a huge challenge for its citizens. They face limitations in every area of their lives, from politics and economics to culture and freedom of choice. This causes sympathy and understanding of the complexity of their situation. It also reminds us of the importance of the support of the international community, because only with its help, the situation can improve.
It was so cool! It's hard to comprehend how this is even possible.
North Korea has a unique punishment system that applies to those who are considered opponents of the regime, including those who have committed political crimes, tried to flee the country, criticized the government, or entered into questionable contacts with foreign citizens or organizations. The so-called 3-generation punishment system is applied not only to criminals, but also to their closest relatives. It serves as a means of social control and maintaining the stability of the regime, and warns citizens against expressing dissatisfaction with the authorities. According to the official North Korean position, there are no camps for political prisoners in the DPRK. However, the testimony of former prisoners, satellite images, and some documents confirm the opposite. There are evidence of unlawful imprisonment, constant interrogations, forced labor, starvation, torture, and humiliation. Due to the secrecy of the DPRK penitentiary system, it is almost impossible to prove the inhumane treatment of prisoners. However, one cannot deny the harsh conditions of their detention in places of restriction of freedom. The general principle of nutrition in North Koreans has remained unchanged for decades. Wealthy people can afford fish and meat relatively regularly. The middle class has to eat rice, while the poor have nothing but corn. At the same time, many do not have money even for it. Children suffer the most from malnutrition. To make matters worse, the country does not purchase suitable medicines for medical care. At the same time, it should be noted that the cost of importing food for Kim Jong-un is about $5 million per year.
Have you also noticed that our time together flies at the speed of light? We can't wait to see you in our next episode. See you soon.